Picture this. You're in Ballymoney, small town, Northern Ireland, the kind of place where life moves slow, and the biggest drama of the week is probably somebody parking in front of the wrong driveway. It's early morning. Birds are chirping, people are stumbling into the kitchen half asleep, waiting for the kettle to boil. Totally ordinary, nothing to see here. And then, out of nowhere, Main Street turns into a nightmare. A house catches fire. Not a little toaster mishap, I mean flames ripping through the place, smoke everywhere, fire crews racing in. And when the smoke clears, the town's left with news nobody wanted to hear. One of their own, a man everybody knew, didn't make it out. Sad enough, right? But this isn't just a tragic accident. Oh no. Give it a couple of days and the police show up with an update that flips the whole story upside down. Suddenly, Ballymoney isn't just a quiet town anymore. It's a headline, and the words everyone's whispering now: murder investigation. Yeah, welcome to the blockbuster nobody in Ballymoney asked for. So, who was the man at the center of all this? His name was Patrick Douglas, but if you lived in Ballymoney, you just called him Paddy. Because legends don't need full names, they just need one. Paddy was 55, and he was more than just a guy in town. He was a tattoo artist known for his craft, but also known for being the kind of person you actually wanted to bump into on the street. Big beard, big heart, and a sense of humor that made him impossible not to like. People around Ballymoney didn't talk about him like he was just some fella who lived up the road. They called him a local legend, and you know that label doesn't get handed out easily. Neighbors adored him, customers respected him, and friends said he had, quote, a heart of gold, which in Ireland is basically the best Yelp review you can get. Even local politicians came out with tributes. Dupe councillor Daryl Wilson called him a true gent, and Alliance councillor Lee Kane said Paddy was well known and would be badly missed. And trust me, if politicians from different sides are all agreeing on something, you know it's real. So yeah, Paddy wasn't just another name in the paper. He was the kind of guy who stitched a small town together, which is exactly why what happened next hit Ballymoney like a brick to the face. One morning just before 7, Ballymoney woke up to chaos. Instead of that quiet hum of people heading to work, Main Street was filled with flashing lights, sirens, and smoke pouring out of a house. The fire service scrambled to the scene with 3 fire appliances, not one, not two, 3. Plus, the air ambulance was called in. That's how serious it was. When you see the helicopter overhead in a small town, everyone knows something bad is happening. Inside the house was Paddy. Firefighters pulled him out, rushed him to hospital, but the injuries were too much. He didn't make it. And just like that, Ballymoney lost one of its favorite people in the worst possible way. The town was stunned. News spread fast. By mid-morning, people were already posting tributes online, trying to make sense of how a man so full of life was suddenly gone. For most, it looked like nothing more than a terrible accident, a tragic fire that robbed the community of someone they all loved. But if you've watched enough true crime, you know that's never the end of the story. And Ballymoney was about to find out this wasn't just a fire. At first, the official word was pretty simple. Police and fire crews suggested this might have just been an accident. Faulty wiring, something electrical, who knows? People were sad, they mourned, and they started moving into that stage of grief where you try to accept it. But then the story flipped. Investigators took a closer look, and suddenly the tone changed. Instead of tragic accident, the police announced a full-on murder investigation, and just like that, the whole narrative collapsed. A 34-year-old woman was arrested on suspicion of murder. Think about that. One day, Ballymoney's talking about how a fire took their local legend, and the next they're hearing whispers that maybe it wasn't an accident at all. Maybe someone set this up. The community, already reeling, was now thrown into confusion. Friends and neighbors didn't know what to believe. People started asking, who was this woman and what exactly happened inside that house on Main Street? This wasn't just grief anymore, it was suspicion. And Ballymoney suddenly felt like the set of a crime drama where nobody knew the script. After the arrest, things moved fast. The 34-year-old woman was brought before the court and formally charged with murder. No bail, no walking free while the case played out. She was remanded straight into custody. The judge even ordered anonymity, which means the press couldn't splash her name across the front pages. That alone added another layer of mystery to a story already dripping with unanswered questions. Who was she? What was her connection to Paddy? And why would anyone want him gone? Then came the experts. They looked at the fire and gave their opinions, and it was about as clear as Irish weather. Some suggested it could have been an electrical fault. Others pointed to the possibility of combustibles being directly ignited. In other words, everything and nothing at the same time. Not exactly the smoking gun everyone was hoping for. So now Ballymoney wasn't just dealing with grief or shock. They were watching a courtroom drama unfold with just enough uncertainty to make everybody second guess what they thought they knew. The only thing clear, this was no longer a simple house fire. Just when everyone thought the story couldn't get any stranger, a detail came out that made people do a double take. Reports said the accused woman had allegedly gone out and bought a barbecue on the very morning of the fire. Yeah, you heard that right, a barbecue. Not the usual shopping list item you'd expect to see connected to a murder investigation, and the timing right before the blaze broke out. That little detail raised eyebrows everywhere. It added this bizarre twist to a case that was already confusing. Was it a coincidence? Was it important? Or was it one of those facts that sound shocking but doesn't mean what we think? Whatever the truth, that barbecue instantly became part of the Ballymoney rumor mill. Because once something like that hits the papers, everyone in a small town is going to talk. And let's be real, when the most beloved guy in town dies and the suspect is tied to a random barbecue purchase, the story doesn't just stay local, it goes national. While investigators were digging into the fire, the people of Ballymoney were grieving. And if you want to know how much Paddy mattered, just look at the tributes that poured in. Dupe Councillor Daryl Wilson called him a true gent and said he was deeply saddened by the loss. Alliance Councillor Lee Kane described him as well-known and well-liked, someone who would be badly missed. That's two politicians from different parties actually agreeing on something which almost never happens unless it's about somebody really special. But it wasn't just official statements. Ordinary people across town were posting online, sharing their own stories about Paddy. Friends called him a man with a heart of gold. Neighbors said he was the kind of guy who made the place feel like home. His death wasn't just news, it was personal. For Ballymoney, this wasn't a story about crime scenes and suspects. It was about losing someone who had been part of the fabric of their community, and that's what made every new twist in the investigation so much harder to process. Because the more shocking the updates got, the more people felt like they were losing him all over again. So here's where we're at. A quiet town wakes up to a fire on Main Street. A beloved man, Paddy Douglas, doesn't make it. At first it looks like a tragic accident until police flip the script and call it murder. A 34-year-old woman is charged. Experts throw in conflicting reports, and then that random barbecue detail drops out of nowhere, making the whole thing feel even stranger. It's the kind of case that leaves you with more questions than answers. Was it deliberate? Was it an accident? Was the barbecue connected, or just the weirdest coincidence of the year? And the story isn't finished. The case is scheduled to go back to court on July 28th. Until then, Ballymoney is holding its breath, waiting to see how this unfolds. The haunting part? Paddy was the kind of guy everyone agreed was a good man, a true gent, a local legend. And now his death has turned into a mystery hanging over the entire town. A fire took him, but what came after might burn even longer. So yeah, Ballymoney. 1 minute it's a quiet town, the next it's the front page of every paper in Ireland. A local legend gone, a murder charge hanging in the air, and a barbecue that might just be the most suspicious shopping trip of the year. If you thought small towns were boring, think again. because Ballymoney just proved they can outplot twist half the shows on Netflix. And me? I'll be watching when this case hits court again on July 28th, because something tells me the wildest part of this story hasn't even dropped yet. Catch you in the next one unless Ballymoney turns into season 2 before that.